In 38 AD, Rome seemed invincible. Senators conversed beneath marble columns that had stood firm for centuries. Everything appeared orderly and magnificent. The empire stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, its borders tightly guarded. To the world, Rome stood as a monument of human civilization. But behind the mysterious doors of the palace on the Palatine Hill, something within was quietly rotting. That year, a 15-year-old girl entered the palace, Messalina. She was seen as a solution for the aging emperor, intelligent, beautiful, and graceful, a young wife. Everyone believed that this woman would restore honor to the imperial throne. History, however, would remember her very differently. This is the story of how a queen turned the greatest power of Rome, the fear of scandal, into such a deadly weapon that the most powerful men of the empire found themselves imprisoned not by armies, but by shame. In those days, empires no longer fell to sieges, but were conquered from within. Messalina needed no army. She possessed a far more effective weapon, the ability to see what men feared most, and the intellect to use it as a blade. Before we begin, if you enjoy the dark tales of history, don't forget to like and subscribe. Write in the comments where you're listening from. We're truly curious how far these stories travel. Now let us return to the story, to the tale of Messalina, the woman Rome tried to erase from memory, whose downfall began not on a battlefield, but in a bedroom. What the public saw and what Rome wanted to see were the same. A noble, intelligent, and beautiful woman, fair-skinned, golden-haired, and above all, a face that knew how to attract attention. She bore Emperor Claudius 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl, both through smooth, swift births. At every state ceremony, every public event, she appeared with perfect grace. Everyone looked upon her proudly. The ideal wife, the magnificent empress, the very embodiment of what Rome expected from a woman. What if this perfection is just a cover? Rumors began to spread through the city's darkest corners, in the narrow stony streets of the Suburra district, in the servants' quarters of the wealthy, in the soldiers' barracks. Whispers seeped everywhere, reaching from the lowest to the highest ranks of Rome. A rumor of an empress slipping secretly out of the palace at night. She wasn't going to meet a lover, nor to pray. She vanished completely. She painted her admired face with the cheapest dyes to conceal her identity and mingled with Rome's brothels. She sold herself like any prostitute, took money, showed no favor, sought no recognition. She competed directly with the professional women of Suburra. Those who recognized her either stayed silent, or coerced and indeed destroyed from within. This wasn't desperation. It wasn't born from poverty or madness. It was something far more calculated. She wanted to know everything Rome had forbidden her, and she explored it deliberately. Messalina was born into privilege, married to an emperor, surrounded by grace, power, and luxury. She had access to everything, but those things meant little to her. They never satisfied her. She desired what was forbidden. Every night, knowing the risk, she took it willingly. The more people praised and adored her, the more delightful that hypocrisy became to her. The next morning, as she greeted senators and generals in the palace, men who bowed before her, unaware who she truly was at night, she felt an indescribable thrill. The brothel in Suburra became her rehearsal stage, and the palace a magnificent stage. By the 40s AD, Claudius's court was no longer what it once had been. The feast that once celebrated victories and conquests had turned into theatrical performances. Senators, expecting honors, were summoned, only to have their hidden desires and secret shames publicly exposed. thanks to the empress's prior knowledge. Generals were tested not by swords and armor, but by their honor. Women were forced to perform their unspoken secrets, bound together by a chain of collective humiliation. Young men were trapped in situations they could never explain or escape. If exposed, they were socially dead. What Messalina had discovered was something no emperor of Rome had ever understood so clearly. Information is a weapon stronger than steel. She ruled not by command, but by knowledge. Her loyal servants documented everything, writing, recording, hiding. Generals obeyed, not out of loyalty, but out of fear and shame. Senators no longer acted for the good of Rome, but to protect their own secrets. The state was being shaped by an unseen hand, a woman's empire of fear. Every confession, every humiliation, every hidden sin was recorded and stored, ready to be used when needed. Rome was now governed by an invisible hand. Messalina's darkest creation outside the palace was her secret brothel villa. It wasn't in the common houses of Subura, but near the Campus Martius, a luxurious mansion disguised as a noble residence. Aristocratic women were forced to serve there. Those who refused saw their families destroyed, their names disgraced, their wealth confiscated. Senators, generals, and wealthy merchants were invited thinking they were attending private entertainment, only to realize too late that the doors had already locked behind them. Every humiliation, every tear, every secret was meticulously recorded. Those records later became tools to control the entire Senate, their families, and the generals. Obedience was achieved through shame, and no legion could break such chains. Imagine a young noblewoman taken from her father's house in broad daylight and brought to the villa, forced under the empress's gaze to act like a prostitute. Messalina would sit nearby, observing, taking notes. A soldier who escaped once said, "Blood dries, but shame never does." Messalina had learned that sexual humiliation wounded deeper than any sword. She saw that true power lay not in commands or titles, but in a person's greatest fear. Killing was easy, but forcing someone to live with their own disgrace was eternal enslavement. Rome was now ruled through shame. The Senate feared not Claudius's laws, but Messalina's notebooks. Governors were appointed not for merit, but for their dirty secrets. Generals fought not for Rome, but to avoid disgrace. Even foreign envoys noticed something strange. Visitors to Rome reported that senators had grown oddly silent, distracted. Something in the heart of mighty Rome had broken. During this time, Messalina's banquets became legendary. At first, priests offered prayers and incense to the gods, but soon senators were paired with their rivals and forced to witness each other's humiliation. Generals were made to join contests that stripped away their authority. Noble women were stripped naked before the crowd, their shame displayed for all to see. Those who refused met the same fate, to live but in disgrace. She saw sexuality as a gladiator's combat, a battle to be won. Her endurance contest with the most famous prostitute, Scylla, shocked Rome. Throughout the night, one was the empress, the other the city's most renowned courtesan. They took men one after another. Scylla collapsed after the 25th man. Everyone thought it was over. But Messalina continued. 30, 35, 40. She didn't stop until there were no men left. By morning, the winner was Rome's empress. Everyone present was horrified. It was not just the ruin of a woman's virtue, but the collapse of morality itself. For Messalina, it was a victory. But why? Why would a woman born to privilege, beauty, and power destroy her own reputation so completely? Some say it was insatiable lust. Others see it as the manifestation of a need for control through sexuality. And some point to trauma. Married at 15 to an old ailing man, Claudius. Perhaps those dark acts were her way of reclaiming her body. Or perhaps the answer was simpler and far more terrifying. She was addicted to danger itself. Messalina's empire of shame enslaved not just people, but Rome itself. The Senate could no longer decide, generals dared not march, governors trembled in their posts. The whispers reached the legions. The barracks echoed with the murmurs of rebellion. At last everything was said aloud. It wasn't the barbarians who killed us, it was a woman. Messalina felt the ground slipping beneath her feet and became even harsher. She increased her guards, toughened punishments, spied on everyone. She tried to enforce obedience with blood and silence through fear. Every smile in the palace was false, every gesture a mask of terror. Distrusting everyone, Messalina began to fear even her own shadow, and her empire began to crack under its own weight. By 48 AD, events shook Rome's very history. Claudius was away in Ostia on military duty. Messalina held a wedding in Rome. Yes, a real wedding, with priests, witnesses, and official vows. While the emperor still lived, she married another man, Gaius Caelius. It was not a secret affair or a hidden passion. It was open rebellion. Vows were sworn before the gods, documents signed, the union announced to the people. Rome's empress now had 2 husbands. To Rome this wasn't just immorality, it was treason. How had it come to this? Some say it was a madness born of power. Others call it addiction. Perhaps it was her final point of satisfaction. Perhaps there were no limits left. She existed only as long as she could create new scandal, but this time the line was crossed and Rome's patience broke. When news reached Claudius, he first laughed, thinking it was a rumor, but evidence kept coming. Witnesses, priests, testimonies, endless proof. The smile faded. The old man who had long been mocked finally rose in fury. He gathered his army and marched on Rome, not as emperor, but as a betrayed husband. Messalina was cornered in the garden where she had once walked in splendor, where she had humiliated so many, destroyed so many fates. Now it was her turn. She tried to offer her children as hostages, but no one listened anymore. Neither tears, nor beauty, nor title could save her. She tried to kill herself, but lacked the courage. Her hand trembled. A soldier approached, and the blade fell. Rome's most powerful woman died in panic, in fear, in blood, in a garden. Claudius was not satisfied with death alone. His rage burned beyond it. Messalina's statues were torn down, her name chiseled from inscriptions, erased from official records. Rome wished to forget she had ever existed. But the more history tries to erase, the deeper it etches itself. The more Rome tried to forget, the more immortal Messalina became. Rome no longer wished to hear her name. This was the harshest punishment of the ancient world, damnatio memoriae, the curse of memory. Messalina's story is the confession Rome never wanted to tell. Even the greatest empires can rot from within. For centuries, Rome survived wars, rebellions, and plagues. But what happened during Messalina's reign was different. It wasn't destruction from without, but decay from within. Rome's fall may not have begun with her, but her story became the prototype for how empires rot. And history's final line still echoes with her tale. Rome's deadliest weapon was not steel, but the mighty shame hidden within a woman's body. Don't forget to hit the like button, follow us, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.